Good morning, YouTube, BookTube. This is Johnny. It's been 3 or 4 days since I made a video, and I thought I would do it this morning since my wife left for a women's Bible study. They're going through the Acts of the Apostles in her women's Bible study. And today is February the 26th. 2025. It's 10:17 in the morning here inside the hermit hut. And yeah, I'm waking up. I got up around 8 o'clock. Outside today, it's supposed to snow and rain. But with the end of February, we're going into March. And I'm on page 190. Wait a minute. 194, page 194 in my 2025 paper diary, writing in down my short span of time on the earth. And I have been reading, I showed this commentary I got last week, commentary on the Apostle Paul's Epistle to the Philippians by Girolamo Zanchi. I should really just buckle down, go online, and exactly know how to pronounce his name. This was translated and introduced by Patrick J. O'Bandon. Yeah, I've been reading this in the mornings, going through Philippians. When you read, when you're reading through a commentary, especially one like the one I'm reading, you kind of read and you ponder. Well, I'll give an example. Something the other day, I was talking to my wife, and we're talking about ebooks and how Amazon, something's going on with Amazon and ebooks. It's all over the internet and YouTube, BookTube. And when I like reading a book, and especially when I'm reading like a commentary or something I like to ponder it. I like to meditate. And when I'm reading, I'm always writing down things, quotes or something that strikes me. I write it down in my paper diary. So I read, I ponder. Sometimes I'll step away and go do something else and come back and I'll read. And I read in the mornings because this is what will be on my mind throughout the day. That's why like this morning my wife, before she left for the women's Bible study, we had devotions. We finished the Gospel of Luke, and this morning we started the Gospel of John. And chapter 1 of the Gospel of John, verse 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him nothing was made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. Very, very famous opening words in the New Testament. It reminds you of the same words that we read in Genesis chapter 1. There's the same kind of echoes. It says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of God, was hovering over the face of the waters. And then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, and that it was good, and God divided the light and the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the mornings were the first day. So you have that same, you have those words, light and darkness, in John, and in the Gospel of John, chapter 1, light and darkness. Chapter 1 of Genesis, the beginning, you have light and darkness. In the Gospel of John, you have the new beginning, the beginning of the new creation, the ushering in of the kingdom of God. And you have in Genesis, Adam and Eve. In the New Testament, you have the second Adam, the Son of Man, the Lord Jesus Christ. It's all these kinds of, like my wife was saying, that the Bible interprets itself. It's interconnected. The Bible has a divine unity. Everything is connected. And so it's very interesting to see all these interconnections. So yeah, we start the Gospel of John this morning. We had time of prayer before she left. And then I was going to, I'm going to read this. And also I've been rereading the Reformation commentary on Philippians and Colossians. Well, I'm in Philippians. So I look at this. They quote here Zanchi's commentary in here. I believe so. Well, Reformation commentary, what it is, as you pick this book up, they go through the verses, chapters and verse of a certain biblical book, and they quote what other commentators have said on that verse in the time of the Reformation. They also quote from Reformed confessions. Like they quote, I was reading yesterday, they were quoting from, they quoted from the, what was it? It was called, the Articles, the Second Hebelic Confession, How to Approach Predestination. And then they quote here, they're talking about Philippians chapter 1, 3 through 11. And this quoting, they quote John Calvin, Martin Luther, other people at that time period on what they said on Philippians 3 through 11, chapter 1. So, very interesting. So I've been reading this in the mornings along with the other commentary. I could get out a whole table full of books on Philippians. But surprisingly, when I went downstairs last week and looked at how many commentaries I have Philippians, I don't have that many. Most of my commentaries on the Old and New Testament, well, there's not many really good commentaries on the Old Testament books. But when you get into the New Testament, especially the Gospels, there's an endless. You can just buy all kinds. But several years ago, I got really into studying the Epistle to the Romans and the Epistle to the Galatians. And I really so I have a lot of those. And then I've always been into the Gospel of John, the Epistle to the Hebrews. Those I have a lot of commentaries on. And then I used to buy commentary sets, like I showed you the Word Biblical Commentaries on Philippians. I showed you that one. But the best way to understand the Bible is not go to commentaries. This commentary leads to contemplation, pondering, and meditation and prayer. Some modern commentaries are very technical. They go into the Hebrew, they go into the Greek, they go into word studies, and they're very laborious in reading, and you got to have almost a PhD in New Testament studies or Old Testament to really get anything out of them. But there are commentaries that are more general, for more not geared towards academics, academia, or they're for lay people. there are Christians like me who study the Bible seriously. I'm not a minister. I'm just, like I said, I'm just an old man who sits here inside the hermit hut in America, and I'm very blessed to sit here and have these books that I can read. I also have been reading in the mornings Confession of the Christian Religion by Gerald Zanchi. I really recommend this if you want a good overview of Reformed theology. Also, I got 2 new books in the mail. I'm supposed to get a lot of books from Amazon today. I've been buying a lot of books lately from Amazon because I figured my days on earth are numbered and I might as well read the things I really want to read. Now, when it comes to books, the books that I really like to read are not ones that I can find in thrift stores. If I want secular books, books on history, books on art, essays, short stories, novels, history, I can usually find those at thrift stores for, almost nothing. But if I want to buy Christian books, which I really like to read, I got to pay a lot of money. It's just the way it is. Especially when I'm into very serious Christian literature, and so you tend to spend a lot of money. And so, but I decided that these are the things I want to read in the mornings, and so I've been buying a lot of Christian books, and that they're kind of expensive. So this is a book that I bought, and I think it goes for $80. It's called Biblical Interpretation and Doctrine in Early Christianity, Collected Essays by Brian E. Daley. This was pretty expensive. I've been looking at it, and I really like reading the history of biblical exegesis, and especially the early church fathers. And so I finally just said, I'll just buy it. I have another book by him, Brian E. Daley, downstairs, so I got this. Yeah, I'm really into this, but once again, it was a very expensive book. And maybe in some people, it's kind of specialized in certain ways, but I don't know. Came out in 2025, just came out. Another book I have, there is a commentary series that I would like to buy. I know I have the ancient commentary series. I don't have all of those. I do buy all of the Reformation commentaries. I told you that. These I will buy, even though they're like $65 a volume. Sometimes you might get them cheaper. So there are, but they don't come out. They come out every year or a year and a half. So, but there is another commentary series that I have a couple on. I have a 2-volume one on the Matthew, and I haven't bought many of these, and I would like to buy all of them, but they're kind of expensive too. And this is called the Ancient Christian Text series. I came across, this is on Ambrosiaster, his commentaries on Romans and 1st and 2nd Corinthians. I have another one of these coming in the mail, coming from Amazon, translated and edited by Gerald L. Bray. Yeah, I really would like to buy all of these if I could afford it, because I like reading the history of biblical interpretation. How now I can't remember when exactly this fellow lived, but I can't remember if it says here. Anyway, I think around the 300s. But so I bought this, and I have another one of his coming in today, another of the ancient Christian texts. So these are the kind of things I like to read in the mornings, fill my mind up with spiritual things. You know, I read that text to you in Colossians, why I do this, where it says in Colossians, it says, Colossians, he says, chapter 3 of Colossians, the Apostle Paul's epistle to Colossians, if then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above and not on things on the earth. Now going back, non-Christian books, I don't know if I showed you this, but I bought the Evergreen Review Reader, 1957 to 1966, best from the first 10 years of America's most provocative, most controversial, and most important literary magazine. Editor Barney Rosette, associate editors Dick Saber, Fred Jordan, Donald Allen. Now Donald Allen, he wrote a very famous anthology of American poetry from the late 50s into the 60s, which I have downstairs. But yeah, in here you have William Burroughs, Frank Rivers, and Frank O'Hare. You have Leroy Jones. You have Martin Williams, William Burroughs, Terry Sutherland, Henry Miller, Gary Snyder. You have Charles Olson, Allen Ginsberg. These are all, back in the late 50s and early 60s, all of these, what we call avant-garde or poets that we would call maybe beats, they first published in the Evergreen Literary Magazine, and that's why I got it. I came across it on Amazon, and as you know, I like this kind of things. You have Richard Brannigan, Robert Cooper, Samuel Beckett, Gunter Grass, all kinds of people that I collect or I read when I was younger. So I got this in the mail last week. What I have been reading, well, I did get a used book, and I've been reading this at night or in the afternoons for nonfiction, Eating Dirt, Deep Forest and Big Timber and the Life with the Tree Planting Tribe. So I've been reading this, kind of relaxing, so I've been kind of reading it. It's about tree planters up in Vancouver Island, and it's a memoir of what that kind of life is like when you plant trees and the people who do it. It's very well written. I'm kind of enjoying it. And I'm still reading the Uncollected Stories of Melville Gamley. I read this too. I've read almost 200 pages. I haven't read Reds in a couple of days, but I do plan to read it. Reds, McCarthyism, 20th Century America, Ted Morgan. Now, Ted Morgan, I told you, he wrote a biography on William Burroughs, the writer William Burroughs, who hung around with the Beats. And I have been reading. I told you I was kind of going to I was going to stop reading the Incarnations, but I suppose I'm going to finish it. I've read almost over 200 pages. I might as well finish reading it. The Incarnations by Susan Barker. Yeah, I don't know. I'll keep reading it. I'm reading still Reinhardt's Garden, a novel by Mark Haber. I've been reading that. Yeah, I'm almost half done with it. It's very small print, but and I'm still reading A Philosophy of Walking by Frederick Gross. And every night around 7, I'll come here into the dining room and I will read this monster of a book. Invictium by Michael Bronsky. I've read thus far. It's 1,190 pages, and I've read thus far 247. And it's surprisingly, even though it's kind of, it's not hard to read, you just gotta focus. Sometimes you might lose track of a certain character. There's certain major characters in the novel, and you have to pay attention. Sometimes you have to backtrack to pick up certain things that maybe you've missed. But overall, I've enjoyed reading it. I would recommend it if you're into this kind of literature. I wouldn't call it experimental. To me, it's like I see myself sitting in a room with a psychotherapist. There's a lot of psychoanalysis. The characters, you go inside their minds, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, how they're perceiving people around them, what they're thinking when they're interacting with people, what's going through their minds. You have different characters. Like one is a gay mathematician, one character is a retired ballerina, one character is a crooked businessman, one character he's out to bring revenge against the Invictum is basically, it's a drug to get people rid of envy, so that all these characters are involved in they're like test, they're giving this drug as a test. I forgot what the word is, trials, before they're going to manufacture this drug, Invictium. But so they get these doses. They're supposed to rid them of envy, and so you go. And then another character, her name is Hector, and she's an African American woman who wants to be a writer. And then you have the people who are involved in this whole drug experiment, different people who oversee the trials of this drug. And so you go into their stories, these different characters and their lives and how they think. And it's very interesting. It's not something that you can sit down and read for hours. I try to read it maybe an hour, 2 hours in the evenings. So Invictum. So yeah, I'd say pick it up. I would, if you're really into this kind of literature, if you like something to immerse yourself in and to go into some kind of other reality, I recommend it. So that's what I'm reading. Like I said, I got a bunch of stuff coming in from Amazon today. I went berserk. So yeah, sometimes I kind of maybe overemphasize the fact about my background, because it used to bug me when I was involved among Christians, like when I was teaching Sunday school, or they'd say, well, you went to Bible college, you went to seminary, and you can't expect me to know any of what you know. And that always bugged me, because like I've said in everything I just showed you is available to anybody who's a serious Christian. I mean, you don't have to just go to college or Bible college or seminary. You can just go to Baker Bookhouse in Grand Rapids and buy these books. And you could be a guy who just builds houses, or be a night nurse or something. You don't have to. So to me, there's no excuse for the ignorance. You know, talk about ignorance. My wife, she has a close friend that she just recently were talking to, and this close friend is they're very devout Christians, and Carol was telling her about that in Ukraine, her denomination has churches. The PCA in America has churches in Ukraine. There are ministers. And other day we had a Zoom with these 3 or 4 of these ministers who are in Ukraine, who have not left their churches, and they're being attacked, bombed, and by the Russians. And this devout Christian that Carol knows for years and years did not know that there were Christians in Ukraine. She would say, really? There are Christians in Ukraine? Ukraine is the Bible belt of Eastern Europe. There is a huge population of Christians in Ukraine. Not only in Ukraine, but there are Christians in Palestine. There are Christians in Lebanon. There are Christians in Syria. There are Christians in every part of the world, and they're being persecuted, put to death, bombed with everybody else. And this person was so surprised. What? There are Christians in Ukraine? Yeah. They had it's the Bible belt of Eastern Europe. So it always surprises me, and people, they live in, I can't figure out what it is. So anyway, that's what I'm reading in the mornings. Like I said, this morning I'm reading through this commentary and reading these other books in the afternoons and evenings, at night, writing in my diary. It's a Wednesday, February the 26th. We're going into March, going into, I think next week, Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. So anyway, I hope you're having a good reading week. I'll show you the new books. I got a ton of thrift store books I bought the other day. Big stack of stuff I found at Gateway Thrift Store. I'll show those in a future video. But yeah, this is my life as a old man sitting in the hermit hut in a world that is just, it's not my home. I'm just a pilgrim traveling through, seeking the city to come. Yeah, I don't know, that verse in Hebrews came to my mind. It says in Hebrews chapter 11, it says, by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place which he received as inheritance, and went out not knowing where he was going. By faith he dwelt in the land of promise as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. And he went out not knowing where he was going. Well, may the Lord bless. Thank you for the new subscribers. Do thank you for your comments. Do pray you're all doing well. And may the Lord bless. And until next time, bye.